Welcome to episode 72 of FBI Retired Case File Review with Jerry Williams. I'm a retired agent writing crime fiction inspired by true crime FBI cases. In this episode, we get to speak to retired agent Juan Jackson, who served in the FBI for 24 years. Most of Juan's bureau career was spent as an undercover agent working dangerous assignments in New York, Miami, Atlanta, and cities around the world. In this episode, Juan Jackson is interviewed about his long-term undercover role as JJ, a drug kingpin in the FBI Group 1 undercover case, Operation Shattered Shield. Juan, as his alter ego, JJ, hired corrupt members of the New Orleans Police Department to protect his large-scale cocaine operation. The dirty police officers maintained around-the-clock guard duty at the warehouse where the drugs were stored. During the investigation, FBI agents monitoring the wiretap of the police officers overheard some of them repeatedly threatening violence against JJ and his couriers. The case ended abruptly when that FBI wiretap also revealed that one of the police officers, Len Davis, had ordered a hitman to murder a woman who had filed a police brutality complaint against him. In addition to murder, Davis, his partner Sammie Williams, and more than 20 other police officers were convicted of extorting bribes and offering protection to a drug dealer. Juan Jackson received the New Orleans Police Department's Medal of Valor for his contributions to Operation Shattered Shield. Post-retirement, Juan has worked as director of security for several NBA teams. Currently, he is director of team security for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I know I say this every episode, and I do mean it every episode, but this is a fascinating case. I mean, when you have a drug dealer coming to the FBI complaining about corrupt police officers, you know something serious is happening. Something not good. This case has it all. Drugs, murder, sex. It definitely should be made into a book. It should be made into a movie. When I think about this case, I can't help but think about Denzel Washington in Training Day. In the FBI, Juan Jackson is known as one of the most successful undercover agents in the FBI. I was excited to hear that he's working on his book. So maybe that movie will happen after all. In part 1 of my interview with Juan, we talk about what it means to be an undercover agent, how a case like this is initiated, and what methods he used to have informants and cooperating witnesses introduce him to the subjects, the bad guys. In part 2, we'll get deep into the case. You will be shocked at the violence and the illegal activities these New Orleans police officers engaged in. Before we get started, I just want to run through some names so that you can stay on track. The case agent, the person running the case and using Juan as his undercover agent, was Stan Hatton, the original drug dealer who came to the FBI and introduced Juan to the corrupt police officers was Skaboo. The main police officers were Len Davis, Sammie Williams, and Larry Smith. And another hero in this case is the only police officer in the New Orleans Police Department who was aware of this long-term undercover investigation, and that was Internal Affairs Sergeant Willie Davis. Please stick around at the end of the interview. I have a great crime fiction recommendation for you. And talking about crime fiction, I want to thank those listeners who have taken the time to pick up a copy of my FBI crime thriller, Pay to Play, about a female FBI agent investigating corruption in the Philadelphia strip club industry. When you pick up a copy of Pay to Play for yourself or as a gift for someone you know loves crime fiction, you're helping to defray the cost for me to continue to produce ad-free content on a weekly basis. As you can tell from the reviews, Pay to Play is a great read. So keep the reviews coming, as well as the tweets, posts, and emails. I love hearing from you. Thank you. Now here's the show. I'm excited to introduce my guest, Juan Jackson. How you doing, Juan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I've been doing this show and talking to and interviewing case agents with some really fascinating cases, but I actually have seen you in person present this to groups in Philadelphia, such as our Citizens Academy, and I have known, from the very beginning that I wanted to get you on the show, that I wanted to interview you about this case. So I am so glad that I finally found you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I know you come into the case, later on. You're not the case agent. You have the huge role of carrying this case as the undercover agent. But if you could kind of set it up for us, what is going on in New Orleans with the police department, and why is it necessary for the FBI to step in to work this case?
I guess to understand, how a undercover agent gets assigned the task, the duty, the case goes through, as you know, based on your background, a lot before it gets to this point. The case had began probably 8 to 9 months before they decided to ask headquarters to provide them an undercover agent. The best way I could explain it is any case agent probably attempts and exhausts all other leads and avenues that he has as far as investigative techniques before he or she will decide to maybe conduct an undercover operation. New Orleans Police Department at that time, and I say this as nice as I possibly can, at that time was considered one of the most corrupt police departments throughout the United States back then. The FBI had numerous cases, FBI New Orleans had numerous cases that involved different corrupt violations, things that these different police officers had committed. So as they looked to find an answer, they realized that maybe the extent of corruption was so far spread throughout the department that it was time to try to identify that in its totality and eradicate it if we as the FBI could possibly do that. For me, my job as the undercover was to come down and be interviewed and discuss with the case agents and the United States attorneys, the assistant United States attorneys, what it is that they're trying to accomplish in this particular case. They were trying to identify as many corrupt police officers as they possibly could. Like I said, they had some real strong intelligence as it relates to what some of them were doing, but in order to really try to identify and, like I said, eradicate, remove, they wanted to try to figure a better way of homing on into this.
What kind of activities were they doing? What were they involved in, this illegal activity?
The different cases varied from anything from selling drugs on their own, on the streets, using prostitutes on the streets, robbing drug dealers and giving to rival drug dealers to sell what they had taken from the first group when they did the search warrants and the arrest. They became like stick-up artists, some of them, of just pulling those guys over, kicking those doors in, and just taking what they could. It, like I said, became such a problem down there that they felt it was time to try to get rid of it as best as they could. They couldn't tell whether this was a gang, a group, an organized group of, was it just one cop after another cop after another cop after another cop, because they had so many cases that varied in all the different avenues that I talked about. You named the violent acts, the shootings, the stabbings, or whatever else, the pistol whippings. These guys did it all to different people on the street as well, as the criminals themselves, whoever it might be that they came across in doing their course of business as a police officer. So, they felt that they could possibly get someone that could identify that to the point that we could take it to a jury and convict those that we'd investigate.
Now, do you have a choice when you hear what's going on, the activities that they want you to participate in? Do you kind of look at it and say, no, that sounds too dangerous to me, or, I don't know if I want to, deal with corrupt police officers? I take it you have that choice when the interview is going both ways. Is this the undercover agent we want to have for this case, and the undercover agent is saying, is this the kind of case I want to participate in?
Yeah, the FBI at headquarters has a database, and that database consists of anybody and everybody that's a certified undercover guy who has experience in doing different cases. For me, I was back in that era of time. I was a very used undercover agent.
Okay.
I had done a lot of different undercover assignments. So as they searched the database to find someone, because, you got to have personality-wise, you got to be able to do certain things, talk to talk, walk to walk, whatever word you want to say. My name came to the top. The only difference in what happened in this particular case was I had just completed another long-term undercover case. And normally in the rules and regulations of the Bureau, it should take another year before I'm allowed to be involved in something like this. But because of the nature of the case and what they needed to do, the FBI had given them my name, so they, if not lack of a better word, overrode the rule to see if I could go down and help our FBI New Orleans division out.
All right, two questions. What was that other role, and could you explain to everyone why they would like you to, have a year off before you start the next role?
Yeah, the other role was I played as a drug dealer. My job was to be that particular other case was up in Connecticut, Boston, kind of move back and forth area. My job in that particular assignment was twofold. They had killed a Waterbury police officer. They had a big, huge Jamaican drug problem up there. My job was to get inside the organization, identify the individuals that had killed the police officer, and then work my way up the top to find out and identify who they thought, but they weren't sure of who was the head of it, and get enough information and evidence to convict them all. The reason why there are time constraints and things like that is twofold. One, that a case, depending on how long you're under for, mine just happened to be a year. After that, there are trials. So normally, there is that next year before those trials will start. So you want to give yourself time to prepare for what's coming, unless everybody pleads out. The other thought and the other rules that are in place, you as an individual needs that time to kind of get back into the fold of the FBI. Depending on how long of a term that you were undercover, and mine, like I said, was for a year, it does take you a little bit of time for that adjustment. I guess for me, I guess I was just a little bit different. So it really, once you got through the psychological testing and things that they do to make sure you're okay, you have to pass all those things. And then it's a matter of them making decisions. And then I know you've heard the expression of needs of the Bureau. My set of skills, if you want to call it that, was needed elsewhere to fit this particular case and role that they wanted me to play. So it comes down to things like that. But you still have choices. Yes, you asked me that, and I have to be honest that, no assignment is taken upon by any undercover agent that they don't agree to take. And for me, it's not a matter of, it's more of what I can do to help. The confidence that I think you have in yourself, the training that you received during the time that they trained me to do what I do, allowed me to believe that it doesn't matter who it is or where it is or how it is that they need Juan Jackson. It's pretty simple. It's just what you take on and what you do to become successful, and complete the case. That's all.
All right. So I know at the beginning of this case, they had been working with an informant. And in many cases, You're right. They don't need an undercover agent. They don't need to go to that degree because they have an informant gathering the information, doing the recording, and all that for them. What was it about this case that they needed to move beyond just using an informant and engaging with an undercover agent?
Well, this was a unique situation. Most informants are developed based on, the violations and how the investigation moves forward. In this particular case, it wasn't anything like that. It wasn't some informant providing information all along. This was a guy off the street that was a mid-level drug dealer that had fallen on some pretty hard times because his source of supply, the individual that supplied him with his drugs that he sold on the streets of New Orleans, had been arrested by the DEA. He unfortunately, right after that, was approached by two police officers who threatened to kill him if they didn't pay them an X amount of money. And they, for getting that X amount of money, $10,000 to be exact, would then allow him to continue, as I told you before about the resume of some of these dirty cops, they would allow them to continue selling his drugs in the project areas that he targeted on his own operation. But unfortunately for him, his source supply and his money-making venture had dried up. So he was really, really stuck. He was in trouble. He tried to first tell them that to cops that approached him, and that went over like a lead balloon. It didn't go well. They literally threatened him and gave him a timeline to bring the 10 grand to them. But he told us that he didn't know what else to do but go back to the DEA, because that's who knocked off his source supply, to try to convince them to help him because he was being extorted and life threatened by some dirty cops. His version of this was that the DEA didn't care. All they wanted to do was know what his operation involved, who, if any, were some of the other people that he used to do his street sales, and how and where, how widespread were they. They wanted to know a lot more about what he was doing in the area called the Desirery Projects in New Orleans.
So as the DEA, they were interested in the drugs, not so much in the police corruption, which is something that the FBI does and not the DEA.
Exactly. And unfortunately for him, but fortunately for us, they told him that you have to first give us something. He really didn't have anything to give him because, of course, according to his version of it, he was kind of tapped out and didn't want to really tell on anybody that he had used to sell his drugs on the different corners. So he just told them, what about these dirty cops? And they stood fast with their request that they tip the tax. So if this will say, we'll see what we can do about that, or we'll refer. He gets up frustrated, he leaves. As he's leaving, he said one of the older-looking DEA agents handed him a business card and said, two business cards actually, one of his own and the second of an FBI agent. Said, give this guy a call. I know he works at his kind of violations because we've kind of, crossed paths a couple times, and see what he can do about what you're talking about, this corruption problem, this extortion problem that you're having. And, good luck. So he leaves, and the unique part about what happened is that this was on Christmas Eve. Oh. If you know anything about our organization, it's like any other government agency, nobody probably is really from the office that they're working in. So a lot of agents go on leave. A lot of bosses go on leave. They go back to the homes that they were really from before they were transferred to whatever division they're assigned. So you're talking about not a lot of people. They're still a functioning agency, but it's a skeleton crew on Christmas Eve. So it's not a lot. But fortunate for him, when he called the number, Stan was still at his desk. Fortunate for the informant, Skaboo, Stan was a Louisiana native and from New Orleans, so he wasn't really going anywhere other than home.
Okay.
So he luckily happened to just be at his desk at the time he called. So Stan, obviously, like any good agent, decided, okay, let's test this theory. This is a great story. You're telling me that you have two dirty cops threatening your life, threatening to kill you and cut you up and put you in the bayou if you don't bring them 10 grand by a certain time tonight. And of course, like anything else, he decides to try to record the conversation. So he says, let's make another call to these individuals and let's test this story. So unwillingly, or I guess to the point that Skaboo didn't want to do it because he'd already got threatened, he makes a call. Stan's able to listen in. He hears the conversation go pretty quickly. He's telling the guy, hey man, I'm having little problems with my money. Hey, is there any way? And then he wants to hear the violation. He wants to hear this threat. And the cop on the other end of the phone says, I told you already that I want $10,000. I told you already that if you don't bring me the $10,000, I will find you and I will kill you. I will take your body and bury it in the bayou. So don't play with me. And this next call, as he said to him, that's the part Skaboo didn't want to hear, better be that you have my money. So with that, Stan, the case agent, or as it started to begin to be a case agent, thought, wow, that's right on point. That's a cop threatening to kill you if you don't bring 10 grand. Sounds like a great lead into a case, doesn't it? Sounds like a great opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's got everything that you want,
So you don't want to blow that. You don't get those. As we both know, they are ground balls. They are they're the layups. They're whatever other, vernacular words you want to use to determine how easy something is. You don't get those in the cases that we investigate. So right away, you don't want to blow this opportunity. So what do you do? All right. Stan, in his infinite wisdom, decides, wow, let's go take this to whatever bosses we can. Well, like I told you before, there aren't many around. And unlike the movies, there is no drawer of cash that we can just open a drawer, pull out thousands and thousands of dollars and just give it to somebody. That's not the way it works in the FBI. There's a lot of approvals, a lot of checks and balances. You spend the government's money, it's a lot to that.
Right.
So with that, Dan now starts documenting everything, starts making calls to his powers to be.
So what's this guy's name? Skaboo?
Yeah, on the street, he is nickname on the street is Skaboo. His real name is Terry Adams, but on the street, he was known as Skaboo. So that's what we call him.
All right, so if it wasn't Christmas Eve, Stan, the case agent, could have gotten the $10,000 once, he provided the necessary information about why he needed it, what he was going to do with it, etc. He would have been able to probably get $10,000, or at least a good portion of it, to show to the police officers. So in this case, nobody's around. He's not going to be able to get it that quickly. What happened?
Okay, Stan, I got to take my hat off to him. He thought he had a great opportunity, as I said before. You don't get something like this dropped in your lap. If you're trying to investigate a corrupt police department, where someone is overtly threatening somebody over the phone, telling you that, what he's willing to do if you don't pay him this money to allow you to continue selling your drugs in the neighborhood. So Stan decided he was going to document it to the fullest, and he was going to take $8,000 out of his own account. I got to give it to him. He did. He very meticulous about what he did, but he documented the transaction, the need, the emergency circumstances, you name it. Stan did it. That's all he could get. He couldn't get a total of 10, so that's why he only had 8. And now he called another agent that was in the area to verify what they were doing, and then also to witness the payment to the police officer. So with that, they made another call to the dirty cop, Sammie Williams, and told him that they will meet him in a parking lot area behind McDonald's to give him the money that he requested. They thought it would be better to tell the officer once he got there that he didn't have the total amount instead of telling him on the phone. They wired Skaboo up to record the conversation, and they had him meet with the police officer, Sammie Williams. He pulled up in his police car with another individual, another police officer, Mike Bacasner, in the car And believe it or not, in the back seat of that police vehicle was somebody they had just arrested. So,
he's talking so bold.
Yeah, you wouldn't even believe this stuff. So they pull up with somebody they were taking to jail. Sammie gets out, and Skaboo starts explaining to him, hey, man, such short notice. You know, I scraped together this $8,000. We can work something out, yada, 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 yada. And they have it in like an envelope wrapped up with rubber bands. Sammie snatches the envelope from him, kind of peruses through it. You know, it's a little thick to it with hundreds and whatever. You know, and he looks through it. Looks like it's probably $8,000. Opens up the trunk of the police vehicle and throws the package inside the trunk. Tells Skaboo that we're going to settle up the other money later. He's got something else he's got to do right now, meaning he has to take care of another matter, which means he has to go take the guy he arrested to jail.
He's a little busy.
Right. So he takes the money and leaves. They go back. Stan takes Skaboo back. They listen to the recording. It's a good recording of him taking the money, telling to count the money, telling him why he took the money, telling him he'll settle up with the other $2,000, the whole 9 yards. So he has everything that he could possibly need to prove that there is a corrupt cop, at least this one, and possibly the one sitting in the vehicle are willing to do things like this.
Was there any visual surveillance too?
They tried to set up, it was only 2 agents, and they tried to set up near the back parking lot area, but it was dark. And they had, at that time, limited equipment to, they could see the car pull up, they could see, and then they could identify the car as it left the area, and with photos could see once they passed through the street light area that they were positioned at. They got a pretty good photo of that same vehicle pulling back out.
And it was a marked vehicle, a marked police vehicle.
Yes, with the numbers on the side and the logo of New Orleans Police Department written on the side and everything else. So it was a pretty good start, like I said, to what they decided this case was going to evolve into. That was their introduction to Sammie Williams, one of the targeted corrupt police officers. They decided they wanted to hear if there were any other cops that Sammie dealt with that were involved in possibly doing the same thing. So they decided for like a month and a half, almost 2 months, to continue to meet with Sammie and at that time his partner, Mike McCasman, and continue to set up simulated drug pickups, money pickups. They did a couple in different locations, a bus terminal locker, a train station locker, a small store where they had some capabilities of storing luggage. Each time, Skaboo would tell Sammie and his partner on a recorded device that, hey man, my guy is leaving me something that I need to pick up for him. He never wanted to use the word drugs. He was a little bit afraid to say that. Money I need to pick up for him and take somewhere, but I'll pay you guys to make sure I get there okay. So they were trying to come up with a scheme that they could show that these guys were willing to do some illegal activity and do it for payment. And each time they did it, those recorded conversations were done because they had a wire on Skaboo at the time to record Sammie's conversation. Yeah, what's this? Oh, this is your boy's money. Never really use the word drugs. Just, yeah, okay. How much am I getting? You give me $1,000 to protect you. Okay. So a lot of different small conversations like that.
Was this something that they were doing before? Because all we knew from before was that he just wanted a payment, a kickback. But were they doing the security thing before?
No. What had happened was the case agent had sat down. They were trying to come up with some way of identifying if there were more corrupt cops. and trying to elicit conversations as it relates to that when talking to Sam. What we're trying to decide is the extent of corruption throughout the police department, and were there others willing to do the same thing that these guys decided to approach Skaboo about. So they were trying to come up with, before I got involved, they tried to come up with an idea of how to determine that. They also were, before they really approached that conversation, was trying to gain Sammie's confidence enough to approach it. So they had to string him along and to pay him and talk about different illegal ventures. Hey, I got some money here, I got some money there, to kind of gain his confidence to when they started mentioning my guy, my head guy, my supplier. Small words at the time, but enough to make them think he's linked to a bigger and possibly larger drug empire organization. They did successfully gain Sammie's confidence. You know, he started loosening up, started, allowing Skaboo to say a couple, buzzwords, this is my man's money, he made a big, deal the other day, or whatever. He never really used the word drugs yet. Unfortunately, the next thing that changed for us was the individual that had shown up with Sammie twice, Mike McCasner, was killed in what the police later felt was a drug setup. Mike McCasner was known on the streets as a rip-off artist for drug dealers. In other words, he would arrest you, take your drugs, then send you on your way. Take your money, send you on your way. The story goes, the police can only prove part of, is that he was called to an abandoned apartment housing area where the homes had been abandoned, not used. The word was that two of the many that he used on the street to point out other drug deals he could rip off told him that to meet him in this abandoned apartment area. He went in there and then they killed him and left him, and they found him the next morning with 2 bullets to the back of his head, and they surmised through some different little phone transactions that possibly he was set up. Transactions showed that he received 2 calls to a burner phone just before he went in there. It wasn't a recorded conversation. Two phone calls that just coincidentally happened seconds or minutes before he arrived at this location.
All right, so he had been ripping these drug dealers off, and for some reason they decided, that's enough. We had enough of you.
Yeah, so Sammie gets a new partner.
Well, wouldn't Sammie be concerned that drug dealers are going to be tired of all of them, and all of the dirty police officers are needing to kind of watch their backs?
I think there was a weird code, and the code was that Sammie and some other officers weren't the rip-off guys. Sammie and those guys were the ones that just would allow you to do your business. In other words,
for a little bit of cash. Okay.
Yeah, you just pay them and you'll be allowed to do it. And that was the price of doing business for these guys. And so that was, lack of a better word, acceptable trade.
Okay. Sammie was a facilitator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sammie gets a new partner, unbeknownst to us, because at that time the FBI was only calling Sammie. And every time Sammie used to show up, he'd show up with Mike McCasner. So this particular day, they do the same thing. They simulate, the case agents decide they're going to simulate another pickup of money. A bag of money was placed in a locker in the bus terminal. Skaboo was going to go pick it up. They'll take him to go get the money. They'll drop him off in another location. They'll pay him for doing that. But when the car pulls up to pick him up, in the car is another guy. Skaboo has no idea who he is. Sammie introduced him as just my new partner, Len Davis. Len doesn't say much to Skaboo. They go do what they do. At the end of it, Skaboo says the weirdest part was Len was the one who got him out the car when they were done with their particular transaction. And Len was the one who told Skaboo to give him the money.
Okay. So now they have 2.
Yes. So now, going back with that intelligence, we identify Len, the FBI does, find out what happened through some other source information, what had happened, supposedly happened to Mike McCasner. Now they realize there is a new player to this, and that obviously this cop had the same setup as to be as corrupt and accept money and deal with a known drug dealer on the streets, which Skaboo was known as a mid-level drug dealer on the streets, and accept money from him for helping him pick up gym bags full of money. So now we have one original guy, Sammie, and a new guy, Len Davis. So the FBI decides they want to try to figure out a way to expand this and identify as many as we can. And so now they call FBI HQ. They decide that they want to run a full-blown undercover operation. They want to come up with a scenario that will allow this to flourish and possibly identify as many bad cops that we could. I get notified by our headquarters unit that my name has been selected. I fly down to Baton Rouge, way outside the city of New Orleans, and meet with 2 case agents and 2 assistant United States attorneys. They have all kinds of files, all these different cops that have been known to do different things. They really don't know where we're going with this, except that these are some of the files of some cases or some allegations and things that they have found out as it relates to corruption in the police department. So I'm reading through things. They let me review the tapes of the simulated drug pickups, money pickup, listening to voices and conversations. They feel that they want to try to move this in another direction and to expand it. I got to back up to one last incident that occurred that put the fear of God in Skaboo. The U.S. attorney, when Skaboo was doing his simulated drug money pickups, felt that there were never any overt acts. No one was saying anything that really let anyone know that this is drug money or these are drugs, that you're having these duffel bags you're picking up.
Was it all like a code name or something? They were using code?
Well, they felt that in a defense, if they just took those 2 officers by themselves and made a case on those 2 based on those acts and took it to court, the defense would be that I had no idea it was in the bag. The guy never said anything. All he kept saying was, yeah, man, I need you to come so I can go pick up this bag for my guy. There was nothing about the content of the bag. So with that, they decided to step it up a notch, and they had Skaboo calls him by a payphone, tells him, yeah, man, you know, I need y'all. My man shit's in. You guys need to come down. Gets there, and Skaboo had this old Maserati that he drove around. Like I said, he used to be a decent drug dealer, but obviously he's not.
Was on hard times now.
Yeah, right. So he's sitting in the car. He gets out of his car, walks over to the 2 cops, and says, yeah, man, my man's dope's in. All we got to do, and he said he got about that much of the conversation out before he gets snatched. Len Davis jumps out the other side, because he's only talking to Sammie, grabs Skaboo by the neck, throws him in the back of the police car, and off they go. Now, Stan and the other case agent were in a car not too far away because that's how it was set up. They would just kind of listen, try to get close they could. This time, because they were going to change the verbiage and say something overtly as the dope is in, meaning I'm telling you I'm going to pick up dope. Then snatches it up, throws him back in the car, off they go. They drive him down, they said they almost lost him. They're trying to follow him as best they can. They lose him one time, but they can hear, the recording, and they have 2 devices on him, one recording, one listening device. They can hear him, but they're trying to keep up, but they lose him for a minute. I'm not sure exactly where he is. They're trying to find the car, but, like I said, these guys took off like a bat of hell, and no one knew they were taking off, so they're trying to find him. But Stan and the other case agent, Karen, could hear the conversation. And it's not going good. You can hear the car come to a halt. You can hear the doors open up. Stan says you could hear Skaboo being dragged out of the car. His version of what happened was he's taken to a desolate location, abandoned area. He's yanked out the car. He's thrown to the ground. He's on his knees. He's told to open his mouth. Then takes his service revolver, sticks it in his mouth, and starts pulling his clothes apart, looking for what he thought was a wire. He's ripping off his shirt, his pants. And you could stand to, he could hear that part, clothes ruffled and moved, and him screaming, "You don't say like that. What's wrong with you?" He's just going bananas as far as him telling Skaboo that words like that will get you locked up. He's saying all kinds of things like that.
But isn't that ridiculous? Because he's afraid that the guy's wearing a wire, but the fact that he thinks he's wearing a wire and he's concerned that he's wearing a wire is great evidence too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You're absolutely right. I guess in his mindset, again, I can't tell you, his mindset was if he found the wire and destroyed the wire, I assume he's thinking then we're okay. I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah, because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Right.
I mean,
right.
all of that searching for the wire is, if there is a wire, is being recorded and
right.
is great evidence too. You know,
right. You would assume he should be thinking that if this is it, then you're pretty much screwed at this point. But I didn't say they were the smart. I just said they were criminals.
Okay.
So he looks. He doesn't find it. Kaboom is shaking like a leaf. He can't believe this just happened.
But he is wearing a wire.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to ask you what it was or where it was, but obviously it was inserted in something.
Well, I can tell you this because it really doesn't matter because it's been on 60 Minutes and Dateline, every other show.
All right. Okay. Well, then tell me.
They get back in the car.
Wait a minute. If it was on 60 Minutes and Dateline, you're going to tell us too.
I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
So they get him back in the car. They bring him back. He threatens him again. Tells him don't say anything like that again. You know, they go through their deal, and he pays them, and he leaves. He drives away. He meets with Stan and them. They're taking the recordings off. Now, you would love to think that our agency, the FBI, is so great at what they do. And they are. This particular time, Stan, like I said, is just a different guy. He was a different case agent. He decided to take that listening device, that recording device wire, take it and put it in the lapel of the small jacket that Skaboo had on, and then run it all in there with a small device. And everything was attached right in there. His wife sewed that into that lapel.
The case agent's wife.
The case agent's wife. I'm telling you, I can't make this up. So she sewed it in there, and he brought this shirt to Skaboo. So when they ripped everything off, obviously their knowledge of wires, remember police officers wear wires too, he's looking for something more overt. A wire stuck on your chest, a wire stuck around you, whatever, you used to do back in the day. So he's looking for those type of listening devices that he is used to seeing. He has no idea of the ability to conceal something and probably the technology that can go beyond what he himself was capable of understanding. So he's expecting to see something just right there on his chest.
And let me ask you, is this a recorder or is this a transmitter?
He had both. The recorder was in his neck. The transmitter was the fake beeper.
Okay.
Yeah, he had both.
Okay.
And that's why you could hear it as it's being recorded because he had both on him.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, we had beepers.
Yes, I have wired up many a person with the beeper.
Yes, so you know how that listening part, you can always listen in and then record from another location, as well as having a recording device, a small Niagara, and they're used as backups. If one malfunctions, you have the other. So it's always good, at least in our world, to try to, if possible, to have more than one, because it's technology, but it's also electronic, and things can fail. So we try to do as best we can with two or more. And now we know who Len is. We understand he's a very aggressive guy. He's about 6'2". Back then, about 255. Big boy. So we now are starting to slowly see that the aggressive police officer is Len Davis. The one that you really better be careful about is Len Davis, who seems to be a little bit more on the ball when it comes to saying something that every cop knows if you say something like that, you better expect some reaction. if you're street savvy and you know that those are the words that can get you locked up. So with that, they still do the deal. They still get paid, and I'm still listening to all the transactions that go down. And I think they have one or two that they did in the daytime that I was able to see what Len Davis and Sammie Williams look like. So I'm brought in to look at all this and review it. And now we're sitting down in Baton Rouge trying to come up with the best scenario we could to move this forward.
I take it that that's part of your role as the undercover, is to also shape the role. They may have an idea of what they want you to do, and you come in with all your experience and expertise and say, no, that's not going to work. This is what I feel I can do to move this forward.
Yeah, we had to iron out. I mean, the concept was still there to try to identify, the corrupt cops that were involved, if there were any. At that time, we're still, trying to figure this out. And just based on these two cops, you really don't have anything that says there's more. You have these two, but you don't know what it is. So now we're brainstorming. You're right. And as me, as a guy who's played the role of many different things, different roles I played, I'm trying to come up with something that might fit this particular need. And we came up with the idea that the backstopping part was going to be how we met. That's very important, that Skaboo and I are going to have to figure out, how do we know each other? And how well are we going to prove that when asked? So that's important. In any undercover operation, as a undercover agent, if you're introduced by someone, an informant, cooperating witness, you have to have some type of relationship. And that relationship has to pass those questions. All the scrutiny, all the things that the bad guy is going to ask. Because you are a stranger to him. Skaboo, remember, is from there. He's not a stranger. They know who he is. They've never seen or heard about me in their entire life. So how the heck does Skaboo know? Why does he and I know each other, and how do we know each other? So we came up with the idea that Skaboo, at one point, believe it or not, was in the military. So we came up with the idea that he and I met in the military. It was pretty easy to do. The FBI has amazing capabilities when it comes to backstopping and doing what we need to do to prove my identity. So we thought we could really set some things in place that would prove that I and he were in the military together at one time. And we did that. And if asked, once we rehearsed it enough, we could go over where we met, how we met, how long we knew each other, and then how we were apart for a while, but came back together again once we both decided to go down the path of selling drugs. I was fortunate to have in my family a background in the military, so I was used to being around military installations and understanding that phase of the Army. So being exposed to those types of installations as a young child, being moved around, things like that, knowing what it's like, I was able to be very convincing to talk about. Some locations, one in particular was North Carolina, where we decided to say we were both stationed, Fort Bragg. So we did that as the backstop. So when we were asked, and of course he was going to be asked separately to me, it was going to be a believable story. We listened to his military experience, and it all centered around there before he got out. So that worked out well to be able to say that's where we met. We kept in touch. We did what we did. We went back. I'm from the East, so I went back home. He went back home, yada, yada, yada. The next thing we wanted to come up with was, what are we going to do to try to identify more police officers? So we decided that we were going to lease a warehouse in New Orleans, in a certain warehouse district area. We were then going to store shipments of cocaine in the warehouse. We were going to ask that we do a round-the-clock guarding of my shipments of cocaine by police officers.
And what was the reason that you needed to bring it to New Orleans and store it there?
We decided, and we were going to tell the cops that we were never going to sell any drugs in the city of New Orleans. 2 reasons. One, we couldn't. 2, we didn't want them to think that anything we were doing, they could observe. In other words, to watch, some guy on the street corner doing it or somebody wherever doing it. So this was just going to be a storage point that my operation was so large that this area in New Orleans was a central location. The drugs would be brought into that location and then taken out and distributed throughout the United States where my particular organization, in other words, my empire, existed. We would only store it there. When we would get our source supply to supply me with the drugs, as the drug world works, the shipment comes in, we get the buyers together, meaning other places that they're going to buy the drugs from. We take those particular areas and we take them and ship them out to those locations unknown. This was just nothing but a storage, an area that was going to be held for us to be able to guard for a period of time until the buyers that I would be out there negotiating with would make the deals with me, and then I would send their drugs to them. That way, police officers would understand that nothing's going to happen in New Orleans. Nothing's going to be sold on the street. It's just a transshipment point. You're going to be posted up here for a while, and then once the buyers connect with me, I take it out of here until the next load comes in. And all I need, depending on how long I need to leave it in the storage warehouse, is that it's guarded 24/7. So once we thought it through, it was a lot of brainstorming to figure this all out. We wanted Kaboo to kind of not tell the whole story, but just kind of throw tidbits out to them. My guy has a plan. The guy I've been dealing with has a plan. Just little words like that to plant that seed in their head that there is a big guy with big money. It's all about money to these guys. What we wanted them to think that in order for us to bring out more people, this is a safe haven for us. If you guys can promise me that you can guard this, hundreds of kilos of cocaine that we're claiming is going to be stored in this warehouse, this is important, very important. Many a drug operation that I dealt with, when I was dealing with the Colombians and the Jamaicans or whatever, they had that same concept where they would take the drugs from wherever they got it from, the cartels would, but they would hold it until they needed to supply it to the different areas they had.
Tell me about the first time you were introduced, that you met with them. How'd that go?
The first time was without any conversation. We kept planting the seed week after week, until we could really start getting all the other FBI approvals and things like that, because it does take a while for all these other things to get in place. So we decided we're going to let them see me, not speak to them, just let them see me. So we decided Skiboo was going to pick up a duffel bag. In the duffel bag was going to be $200,000. He's going to pick up the duffel bag, bring it to me, and I'm going to be sitting in this restaurant in the Sheraton Hotel in New Orleans. They're going to bring him to the hotel. They're going to get out, walk him into the hotel. They're going to stand at a distance, just observe, and he's going to walk up, sit down with me, pass me the duffel bag. They're going to get a chance to observe me for the first time. I'll pass him something, meaning a payoff. He'll take that, walk out the door, go back, talk with the cops, and pay them. So we had it set up pretty good. We had the duffel bag already stored away. They picked him up, took him to the train station. Obviously, the FBI is all over this watching. I'm situated in the hotel, the restaurant area of this hotel, sitting in this one location, where I can see the front door. I see them enter, and they're in uniform. Skiboo walks up to the second level where I'm at, and just sits the duffel bag down. We sit there for maybe 15 minutes talking. He obviously has a wire on him, so I can't really say a whole hell of a lot because he's recording. Then I take out an envelope, tell him this is for their help, and then I tell him, don't anyone move until I leave first. I get up, walk down, go towards the back, disappear through the kitchen and out the back door. They go back where his car was parked, pays them $1,500 apiece for doing what they did. They have a small discussion, which is important, and that's them talking to him about me. Whatever they were expecting to see or convinced them that I was who he had been telling them I was. We always told them that at different times there was going to be money drop, or someone's going to be leaving me something, and his job was to get it to me. So this particular time, this $200,000 payoff was for obviously some other drug transactions that went down, and Skiboo's, my little right-hand man, his job was just go pick it up and just bring it to me. Their job was to make sure it got to me. For doing that, showing that they're willing to help me out. I'd pay them. For us, it worked out well enough for us to be able to now pitch them that I want to meet them to discuss how I want this operation to go down.
And where was that meeting?
This one was in the Hilton Hotel. We had to secure the room, put everything in place that we needed to do to make sure we could record and document a particular meeting, SWAT and everybody else next door in case it went bad. All that was set up, securing those two rooms in advance of the meeting. We did everything we could to put things in place. We had some listening devices and lamps and different things like that. My job was to make sure that they could face the cameras. So you can do everything you can by placing chairs and everything else there, but you never know what bad guy is going to do what when they come into a room. So you're hoping that you can steer them in the right area they can face the camera. So we had set all this up. And in my mind, I was going over in my head, how this was all going to go down. But I was going to say, you kind of get to that point that this is the big meeting. This is the one that's going to, work or not. This is where all the work all before this is where everything that everybody did is not going to be put to the task because it could fall in your face and they could not like me, not believe me, not want to deal with me, or they could accept everything and we could move forward. So it's a very important meeting. The U.S. Attorney and the case agents both asked me to make sure I try to get out the overt words of what we're going to be guarding, cocaine, kilos, shipments of coke, to make sure that we have documented that they know they're going to be guarding shipments of cocaine. Now, that feedback came with some resentment from Skaboo.
Because he had done that before. It didn't work out that well for him.
Right. You can imagine, his input into this meeting, because he was also in the meeting. We had to make sure everybody's on the same sheet. He was really upset. These guys are savvy guys. You can't just start talking and not have some people raise eyebrows and start questioning, especially after what happened with Skaboo with the gun in his mouth. You had to sit and think about how you were going to pull this off. And then myself and Skaboo had a meeting by ourselves before, we did this. And he was really concerned. I mean, he really just thought it was a bad idea. Flat out bad idea. Just like, we can't do this. We can't say it to him now. It's too soon. It was a real meeting of the minds. And all I agreed to was that I would do my best.
Okay.
You really have to understand the situation.
Play it at the moment.
Yes. So it was all set up. Initially, we told them we're in one hotel just to throw them off. Then we told them we're in this other hotel, and like to kind of keep them on, not really know where we're at. We finally identified that we're in the Hilton. We're sitting there and waiting, and he's still mumbling and grumbling. My undercover name was JJ, and he kept calling me Jay. He kept saying, Jay, we need to go slow. Jay, we need to go slow. So knock on the door. Sammie's in first, Len's in second. Same little brother handshakes, you flat and grab. But in my head, I kept running over in my head, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? It's like anything else you do when you first time meet the bad guy, you really try to run every scenario through your head as you're getting ready to meet the bad guys for the first time.
I take it you're trying to be flexible. You don't want to make a decision as to what you're going to do. You're going to wait and see and let what comes naturally come naturally.
Your personality, and it's the direction of the United States attorneys and the case agents. So you have to integrate all of those things into those meetings. So you really do. You're fighting, trying to accomplish as much as you can. But at the same time, there are some eggshell walks. You have to be careful. You really have to rehearse this in your head over and over and over and over again, making sure that it's going to come out just like that. So they walk through the door, they meet me. And I go, before we get started, before anybody says or opens their mouth, because I don't know you guys and you don't know me, we're all going to strip down to our underwear. That way, I know you don't have a wire on, and you're not trying to set me up, and I don't have a wire on, and I'm not trying to set you up. And Len was the first one to speak, and he says, absolutely. He was already leery of the meeting. He could step down and start talking without first clearing the air a little bit, then the meeting might not go well. So here we go. Of course, all this recorded. Everybody back later got a real kick out of seeing everybody stripped down to their underwear.
You did not let the case agent or the AUSA know that you were doing this?
No.
That you were going to do this? Did you know that you were going to do this?
I knew. No one knew but me.
Okay.
Who didn't even know? No one knew, because I kept running it over in my head. You got to put yourself in a certain mindset. Understand what it's like to deal with whatever bad guy you got to deal with. A murderer, a drug dealer, a bad cop, whatever it is. So you have to try to figure those things out. You really do. And that's what I came up with. What if I really was a drug dealer and I'm meeting a cop for the first time? They're saying he's dirty. What if he set me up? I was trying to run every scenario I could, every thought, every way, who would think what, and that's what I came up with. I came up with it. Everybody started stripping. Screw was staring at me. What the hell? Shirts up, pulling their pants down. Everybody's turning around to each other, pulling down your underwear. So everybody could feel comfortable that there is no wire on anybody. You don't have one because you're the cops, and I don't have one, because I'm who I am. And then after that, I told them, because I really felt confident in how well our tech squad works. I said, look around the room, open all drawers, closets. And that's what they did. They started pulling open drawers and lifting up the lamps, which was kind of funny, looking for listening devices or recording devices or cameras planted they were going to find. After that, we sat down, and Len was the first one to open his mouth. He said, if you had not done that, I would have not felt comfortable in talking to you. So, you start to feel the confidence because now this guy possibly thinks I'm the real deal. So he's saying in his mind, a real drug dealer would not have just proceeded to start talking about something to two cops that he knows are two cops without checking out that they are trying to set him up.
You're as suspicious of them as they are of you.
Exactly.
And you showed it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So we sit down. The meeting, probably 3.5 hours. We're in this room. We're talking about all types of things. Obviously, they want to know how we met. How'd you guys know each other? All the things we rehearsed. And they're jumping from one thing to another, jumping back to Skaboo to hear what his answer is. They're smart. They're showing some savviness to themselves as far as what they and themselves, I'm sure, had in their minds that they wanted to ask to feel comfortable before we discuss what it is I'm proposing. So after getting through the Army and the military and how we kept in touch and, how I'm from New York City. I was assigned at that time as an FBI agent. I was assigned in FBI New York. I know everything about New York City. I also had ties in Miami. I'd done several undercover operations in Miami, so I knew Miami pretty good back then. I felt comfortable in telling them, that I have ties in two areas in case they wanted to ask me some questions about either one. Our story, our legend, backgrounds of who we are, how long we've known each other, were solid. After we got through all that, now we were going to sit down and discuss the operation I was proposing that we set up in New Orleans. It went over real well. I mean, they were very receptive. They listened intently to everything I said. We gave them the idea that we did not know where in the city we were going to lease this warehouse. We did know, but we gave them the impression that we were still feeling that part out. So I was trying to get from them some locations where they felt would be a good place to have such a warehouse.
And I guess that helps with the predication. You know that It's not something that you set them up or talk them into, because they actually participated in figuring out, arranging how this was going to happen.
Exactly. Different little conversations like that were things that they bit into and discussed. They knew what I was looking for and what we needed to do to make sure Joe Public or anybody else wouldn't recognize what it is that we're setting up. We knew where we were looking at. We knew what we were going to do. We just wanted them to feel that they're a part of this.
All right, so we're all curious. Did you drop the buzzwords? Did you say the words?
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. As I'm talking to them, this is after an hour or so of talking, I bring up what happened to Skaboo. And I say, that can't happen again. There's no sticking no guns in anybody's damn mouth. There's no threatening. It's not the way I operate. But I have to make you understand the importance of what I am storing in this warehouse. It's very important that you understand the value of what's in there. From this day moving forward, I don't give a damn what we call it. Apples, oranges, peaches, or pears. Before I could complete my sentence, Len Davis says, okay, I get it, without really calling it cocaine. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was just, before I could complete my sentence, he completes it for me.
Wow. So you don't even have to say it. He says it.
That's exactly how it happened. As Lynn was saying it, Sammie was reinforcing what we understand. I got it. It's cocaine. I got it. So, and then I was able to then articulate from there the amount. Because when he said it, then I said, yeah, well, it ain't going to be no small amount. It could be as much as 100 kilos in there at one time. It worked out well.
Okay, and this is all on audio and visual recording.
The best you could have, like I always say when you have to go to court. You need that better than anything else. My meeting with those two guys were centered around me convincing them of me being a drug dealer, the man with the never-ending pockets, money that goes to no end. So anytime.
And how'd you do that? Did you have a lot of money that you were throwing around?
Yes. In my pocket could be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. $200-$300 plate dinners, $400 or $500 of whatever they wanted to drink, whatever they wanted to do. A night could be $1,500, $2,500 just to talk to them. That's not counting giving them money. I would always call it time is money. If I'm here to talk to you about my business, I pay you for it. I give them $500, $1,000 to show who I am. And if I am who I am, and I got 100 kilos in a warehouse, how much money do you think somebody like that has? A lot. Trust me on the ones I've locked up. A lot. So, pinky diamond rings, Rolex watches, golden earrings in my ear, necklaces around my neck, tens of thousands of dollars, you name it, I wore it. I get Skaboo to lease, luxury cars when I would come in town, the Jaguars, the Benzes, whatever. Everything about me was at that level.
But the funny thing is, because I want to make sure everybody understands how the Bureau works, you're showing all of this and the money is flying, but there's somebody back in the division, in the office, who is writing every single cent down. Everything is accounted for.
Oh, my God. We had audits that you would not believe. I mean, yes. Accountability is the one thing that our organization stands for. And it has to add up. Any money I was given had to add up in the end. Anytime you spend, you have to show how and where you spent this.
Because that's the one thing I like to do on this podcast. My whole purpose, especially for people who are writing or, producers or doing films, is to show them what it's really like. Because in a way, it's kind of fun to do something different and innovative where you really show the UCA throwing money around and then he comes back and, they're actually writing out ledgers of the money he spent.
All those documents had to be produced along with the reports.
Right.
Of what I did, who I met with, the entering of those logs, of those tapes. It's a lot more than just meeting and greeting.
The documentation, the accountability, even as an undercover agent, you still got to do all of that.
Yes, you still are held accountable because everything is going to be scrutinized and questioned in a court of law. If you go to testify, the defense only has so many ways to run this smoke and mirrors against. And those are those documents. Those are those things that say the FBI is running them up. Well, no. It is all right there. And I'm telling you, there are sleepless nights to be out all night long, and to hang out all night long, and then have to go back and find time to get all this document. It's not as glamorous as it sometimes sounds. It's still a job, an investigation. It's not just me just hanging out. When everybody asks me, how do you do it? You integrate your personality to the role that you're playing. Out comes JJ, me. As you did it and you got good at it, it became second nature. In this particular case, the biggest challenge was these guys as cops, they had other capabilities that we were always concerned with. little things you did, little things you watched. You know, remember, this is their city. So if you're out on a night in the town, careful, because you could be also in the presence of some other cop. All those things you got to keep in your mind.
Somebody could be watching you at any time.
Yep. Anytime. The things that we used to do to hide me away, switch cars twice, just to go back to the undercover part, to do that counter surveillance. It's simple to see it in action. It's hard to do it. As we got that case moving, those meetings were important because he now is going to be my cooperating witness, for lack of a better word. Remember, now he has to be my recruiter. He has to recruit people for me. He has to tell them who I am and what I am.
Right, he's got to vouch for you.
Yes. So I gotta convince him. Sammie Williams, I truly believe to this day I could have sold him to Brooklyn Bridge easily. Len was hard for me to gauge him. It was a challenge every day. If I talked to them about the importance of what was going to happen, he would listen to every word. If I slipped in the word cocaine or kilo, he would come back and tell me how many times I said it. You said that 3 times. I get it. Okay, you said that twice. I get it. So you always had to be on your P's and Q's with him. Make sure you're sharp every day, not just every other day. Now we got the warehouse. It's all ready. I call them and they meet me and I show them the warehouse. We come inside. The warehouse had an office space upstairs on the second level. Downstairs was a big storage area. We had 2 gigantic safes. That's where the cocaine would be stored until the couriers would come to remove it. So I was showing them the whole operation. Kind of getting their approval. So now they're feeling good. They're feeling that, okay, we're ready. The biggest problem now is they thought the operation was just going to be theirs. And the more I told them I needed more guys, the more they said they could do it. I said, how are you going to do it around the clock? But how are you going to stay up? So we argued. Finally they agreed. Okay, what do you want? I said, I'm going to need some more guys. Now what happened was, early on in the case, I forgot to tell you this part, we had given Sammie a cell phone that obviously we had wired. Because we thought he was the main guy. When I first met them, he was the main guy, until he brought in Len. We have a problem that the one device that we had given to what we thought was the main guy before we set this operation up, so we could hear some of the things that they weren't willing to tell me directly, we had the wrong guy. So now it's my task to now give a phone to Len, who is leery of everything. Well, thank goodness, just before we set up this recruitment operation, I decided to take him to dinner myself, just me and him. And we're out talking and doing whatever we're doing. And his phone just keeps ringing. It's ringing. I say, hey, man, you gonna answer the damn phone? So he's not answering his phone. The phone's just ringing off the hook. He's just refusing to answer. He's like, I got this plan that tells me I can only, back then they had these different plans, data plans. And his plan was so screwed up, you could only have so many incoming, something ridiculous. We had already heard this several times that he had said this to Sammie Williams. Thank goodness over the phone we had given him that he had this screwed up plan. So I'm talking to him and I had, had my little bag with me that carried some stuff. And I said, well, how about if I give you a phone? Because I need you to always be able to, I need to reach you at any time. And if we are going to get this operation up and going, I can't afford you not to answer the phone because your plan is telling you can't afford my call. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So he's like, no, I'm good. I'll just be able to just, I don't know, I'll figure something out. I said, no. Here's what we're going to do. So I handed it to him. And I knew right then, just handing him something that's probably whatever the top of the line phone was back then, small, fancy flip phone or whatever it was, he was going to be impressed. So I handed it to him. Now we are set. Now we have the capability of listening to a lot of conversation he's going to have with the original 9 guys that we recruited. Through some other intelligence that we've got, we found out what cops Sammie knew fairly well, which ones Len knew fairly well. I think we had 12 identified, but 9 solid. If we posed this to them, these cops could be the ones they recruit. Couldn't say for sure.
Guys that you had already seen, that they hung out with, they did things with. And most likely these would be the people who they would use for this project.
When I talked to both Len and Sammie about it, they aren't happy. See, what they thought was going to happen was I was just going to allow them to go grab me cops that no one did, except that. When we met, there was a bar called Flynn's Den. We sat in there one night, we're talking, and we're discussing this recruitment venture. They thought it was going to go down that they were going to do the recruiting and just supply me with the officers. And my argument was that my problem with what you're saying is that I'm not going to select anybody that's just down on his luck. At that time, the New Orleans Police Department was the lowest paid police department in the United States. Doesn't make you right to do anything wrong. I'm just trying to tell you these facts. I didn't want some down on his luck police officer who had never really done anything wrong, but couldn't resist taking some $1,000, $800 payment because he couldn't pay his mortgage, but really hadn't done anything illegal. I didn't want to feel that we set this guy up because he just couldn't say no. He was just too weak to say no. I would rather get a police officer that could prove to me, or we have proven through some other intelligence gathering, that this guy has been involved in some illegal activity.
Right. So, again, the word that the Bureau uses all the time is predication.
Predication, right. So for me, I had to convince Len and Sammie that guy that you get that is down on his luck, if in fact something somehow gets leaked out, he's going to sin. Because he's never been involved in anything, and he ain't going down like that. He's going to sell all of his out. So we're not letting that happen. That's how I told it to them. They both said, yeah, okay, Jay, I guess you're right. I want the guy that's out there doing dirt. The dirtier, the better. That's what I want. You better bring me somebody that can prove to me what he got going on, or he's out. That's it. No discussion. I always try to explain the alpha male. The alpha male is the dominant figure. As an undercover agent, your one trait that has to be constant in your ability is the ability to be the alpha male. Or you will be dictated and you will be steered down to do whatever that alpha male tells you to do. So that was what I had to do. Now, Len was an alpha male. The two alpha males don't really fit. He didn't like the fact that he wasn't going to be the leader. So we set up 2-day recruitment in the bar.
What are you going to do? Interview people? Have them bring their resume and interview them?
Well, what we're going to do is we were going to let Len and Sammie bring in their candidates, their nominees, their people that they felt that they wanted to present to me. Then, in their own words, meaning the dirty cops' own words, they were going to have to sell themselves to me. Tell me what they're about. Funny part was to sit there and listen to these guys sell themselves on stealing drugs from the police vault, to having prostitutes on the street, to ripping off drug dealers, whatever their deal was. Each guy had his own resume of illegal activity. It's funny to hear sometimes. The one guy who stole from the vault, he had this elaborate scheme with him and the evidence sergeant. He would cook the book. He had this way of delivering the drugs to the vault and then taking the drugs back out. He had this hookup. The guy who oversaw the evidence room would just lackadaisical sign off on this. He never know. He didn't know what was in there. The guy with the prostitutes, how many bad ones he had, opposed to the ones that made him money, the other ones that lost him money. And each guy has his own unique story.
I guess they were trying to impress you.
Yes, and they were. Now, there was always this intimidating factor with me. So as these guys are meeting me, just to get them to loosen up was almost impossible. Like take a drink, take a sip of some drink you got or whatever, some Crown or whatever the hell you're drinking, trying to loosen himself up to be able to talk to who Len and Sammie had already told them of my level. You know, you're going to meet a real live drug kingpin or whatever you want to call me. It's interesting to listen as they presented their resume of illegal activity to me to convince me to allow them to work on the operation. And one guy, Len, determined to use but doesn't want to meet. We get down to 8. And the 9th guy, Larry Smith, Len says, good guy, I've known him all my life, trusted guy, but he just don't feel comfortable meeting. So we're done for the night. We go back and discuss it. And we discuss what we're going to do and if we're going to allow that ninth guy to be involved, because I don't know. We tried to get as much intel as we could on the guy. We had one police officer that knew exactly what we did in New Orleans, by the way. I forgot to tell you that. There was only one cop that knew we were conducting this operation.
Oh, so you did have somebody on the inside.
Yeah, we had one guy, Sergeant Willie Davis. And
let me ask you this. Why this one guy? What was it about him that the case agent, the U.S. attorney, and you felt you could trust him?
Well, let me tell you their story. Let me tell you mine. Theirs was, Willie was in their internal affairs unit at New Orleans. Willie and Stan had worked together on several other cases where a police officer was convicted of whatever violations that he had committed that Stan has successfully investigated. So Willie and Sam and the United States Attorney's eyes was a solid guy. So I sat down with him, and then I had him draw up the document. But the agreement is that you will be indicted if you reveal anything about this case at any time before it's taken to trial. And you'll sign it and agree to it. Well, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. He signed it. I get where you're coming from. You're just looking at a bunch of dirty cops and what is the difference in me? And he said, I'm just not one of them. So this one guy was able to, at different times, once he signed his agreement, get more intel for us as it relates to different things like that. Like who, what cases do they have open on these guys? Larry Smith, on the other hand, was working in a DEA task force.
Oh, really?
Yeah, was Len Davis's classmate. Willie could verify that there's not a lot on Larry, but the closeness that Len has with Larry, and he wasn't destitute, he wasn't, a guy, couldn't pay his money, all those things like that. So he wasn't that kind of guy. If we felt that was going to be a tiebreaker, a game changer, if we didn't let Len get his buddy in, we decided to go with it. So,
well, the other thing is you can understand his reluctance.
Yeah.
If he's on the DEA task force and meeting you, he doesn't want anybody seeing him anywhere near you.
Well, matter of fact, once we gave Len the phone, a conversation with Larry Smith goes, I'm not talking on this phone, and you need to stop telling people how great that meeting was in that hotel room, how smart you were in that hotel room. Because let me tell you, the feds can make up microphones and cameras that you'll never find.
And he was right.
Yeah, he was right. He was right.
Wow.
So now we're ready to move forward. We're now going to devise a schedule. We're going to now recruit. We're going to go get other FBI agents from undercover agents. We're going to set up this courier, meaning an FBI agent in an undercover capacity will drive up in a van. They will drive that van in. We will load 20, 30, 40 kilos of cocaine in that van. Then that agent, acting as a drug courier, will drive that van back out the warehouse. Len and Sammie will follow them to the city limits, meaning placing them on one of the highways, Highway 10 that we normally would use. And once they got outside the city limits, safe passage as far as they're concerned, off they would go in what they thought was a shipment of my cocaine being sent to unknown location. We set up the first operation, and we're going to do a 3-day deal just to test the availability of all the people that we're going to be used around the clock. There are going to be 2 guys on each shift, 8-hour shifts, all the way around the clock, each one relieving the other one. Initially, each guy would pull up in his personal vehicle. Well, initially they started with police cars. I forgot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this sounds weird. One of the cops had this hookup with a motor pool. He would sign out a vehicle, bring it to the location, set it up. You would come in, get in that car, and then, do your shift. We did that for the entire first week. Each guy was paid like $1,000. At the end of the time, once the last shipment of cocaine was removed from the warehouse, I would meet at Flynn's Den. I would set up payment to pay the individuals for their time. We're setting up every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, we run another 3-4 day deal. And we're trying to use as many police officers as we possibly can. What we're trying to do is build up a more of a lengthy operation. And with that, try to see if we can gain the opportunity to get more cops on board. The first month that we did this, we're not getting anybody new. And we're not sure, is that it? Then we get a break. We decide to take a courier. The FBI, we have some pretty interesting resources. We decide to take a courier, a couple of FBI undercover guys that are pilots, tell them to run to the smaller lakefront airport that was out on the other side of town. We decided to run a 2-day operation where we needed some people on that side because loads are going to be taken on a plane and flown to Miami. We still got shipments still in the warehouse, but we need some more people to run this operation simultaneously. So we did that. Out comes another 6 more cops, new cops.
Now, are you vetting these the same way?
The problem with these 6 is that Len has now decided that we're not doing the recruit thing no more. We can't do this. So here we go arguing, me and him. Finally, the case agent and the U.S. attorney says, if we can get conversations with Len Davis on the phone, because we have a tap, with these guys, that will be good enough to convict them. But we have to get them talking about it. So that means I have to generate the conversation, tell him to call the guy, and then hear what he's saying as far as what he needs the guy to do. It's just amazing how each guy says something stupid. The first guy he gets on the phone says, it's like a little smaller airport that we're going to use. It wasn't the normal big airport that New Orleans has. They're patrolled by a Levee-Port Police Department. So he says to Len, what if the Levee-Port Police Department comes up and questions why I'm sitting out here watching this storage spot, and then they want the damn thing open and the cocaine pops out? What am I going to do then? Len tells me that you flash your damn badge and tell them to back off. So now each guy gets his marching orders from Len as far as what to do. Levee something police department approaches them. So each conversation is somewhere similar to that, alluding to what's in this storage spot that you got. They go so far as to lie to me. They recruit a Levee board police officer. They then take his uniform off and put on a New Orleans police officer's shirt. And they said this all on the phone, so if Jay rides by, he'll know that we got all New Orleans PD on this detail. But he's our guy on the inside in case someone decides to come at us and ask us what we got going on out here.
They think they're playing a game on you.
Yeah. Amazing to hear the conniving. Fortunately for us, it's in our favor.
It makes them even dirtier. Yeah.
They're just discussing the illegal activity and what to do in case the police approach you. Don't worry about it. We got it covered. Don't worry about it. Just don't let them open up that storage bin. Now we're having 2 things run simultaneously. We've just recruited another 6. We're incorporating that new group and we're starting to expand it 4 days, 5 days, 6 days to use everybody we can to continue grow the operation and find as many illegal cops.
And that's the end of part 1 of this interview with Juan Jackson. Don't forget to come back for part 2 next week. As always, back at jerrywilliams.com, you'll find in the episode show notes photos of Juan, photos of that Medal of Valor he received from the New Orleans Police Department, personally inscribed photo of him with director Louis Freeh, a link to that FBI Files show featuring Operation Shattered Shield, and numerous articles about the case. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with your friends, family, and associates. I make it easy for you. At the bottom of the episode show notes at jerrywilliams.com, you'll find all the social media share buttons. And if you're listening to this on your device, you can share it directly. Just look for those 3 little dots and share the episode. And don't forget to come back for part 2. You will not believe how far these dirty police officers went. My crime fiction recommendation for this week is Identical by Scott Turow. This book is about State Senator Paul Giannis, who's a candidate for mayor in Kendall County, and his identical twin brother Cass, who, after 25 years, was recently released from prison. He had pled guilty for the murder of his girlfriend. But did he do it? That's the question that retired FBI agent Evan Miller is tasked by her boss to find out. I really enjoyed it, but I have to admit that I listened to the audiobook, and it is like listening to a movie. The actor that was chosen to narrate the audiobook was fantastic, with different accents for each of the characters. So I certainly recommend that you listen to the audiobook. Hey, and I have special news for you. Don't tell anybody yet, but Pay to Play is actually, as we speak, being made into an audiobook by a very, very talented actress. I'll have more news about the audiobook at the end of July. I am so excited. If you've already purchased the ebook of Pay to Play, just remember that Amazon makes the audiobook available to ebook purchasers at a deep discount. And one last thing, while you're visiting my website to check out the photos and media links for Juan Jackson and Operation Shattered Shield, don't forget to join my FBI Retired Case File Review reader team. When you do, I will send you the FBI Reading Resource, a list of FBI books written by the FBI agents who have appeared on this podcast. Books about the FBI written by FBI agents. All you have to do is sign up when you see the pop-up. This episode was sponsored by FBIRetired.com, the only online directory made available to the general public featuring retired FBI agents and analysts interested in showcasing their skills to secure business opportunities. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you come back again for another episode of FBI Retired Case File Review with Jerry Williams. Thank you.